Hi, this video is about electronic oscillators. So, um, what are oscillators? Okay, so what is an oscillator? You can define oscillator in any of these four ways. So, it is a circuit that converts DC energy into AC energy at a very high frequency. It can also be defined as an electronic source of alternating current or voltage having sine and square or sawtooth or pulse shapes. So this is a circuit which generates an output signal without requiring any externally applied input signal, and it can also be defined as an unstable amplifier. Okay, so excluded in the definitions for an oscillators are those electromechanical alternators that produces 50 hertz AC power or any other devices which converts mechanical or heat energy into electrical energy. Okay, so for the comparison of an amplifier and an oscillator circuit, so as we can see here, we have an output signal for an amplifier circuit. We have an output signal whose waveform is similar to those of the input signal, but whose level is higher. So it's already amplified. Okay, so it's the amplified version of the input signal. As we can see, for an amplifier also, it has an external DC source where energy is taken from the DC power and converts it into AC energy. Okay, so that's why our output signal is being amplified, because some of the energy is taken from the DC power and converts it into AC energy in at a signal whose frequency is the same as the frequency of the input signal. Okay, so as for an amplifier circuit, if we do not have an input signal, therefore we don't have any output signal. Okay, so energy conversion is controlled by the input signal. Without an input signal, we do not have an output signal. So oscillator, on the other hand, does not require an external signal to start or maintain energy process conversion. Okay, so as you can see here, the only difference among the two is the appearance or the presence of an input signal. So in an oscillator circuit, it doesn't require any external input signal. So it keeps on producing an output signal as long as the DC power source is connected. Okay, so what will be the frequency of the output signal? Because for an amplifier, the frequency of the output signal will be dependent on the frequency of the input signal. However, for an oscillator, since it has no input signal, the frequency of the output signal is determined by the passive components that will be used in the oscillator, and it can be varied by and the frequency can be varied by various designs. So there are two types. Technically, there are two types of oscillators. So we have the first one, which is the sinusoidal or harmonic oscillators. So these are the type of oscillators that produces sinusoidal waveforms. So there are different types of sinusoidal oscillators. So we have what we call tuned circuits or LC feedback oscillators. So we have different examples for this. We have Hartley, Colpitts, and Clapp, etc. So we have RC phase shifts oscillators. So one popular example for an RC phase shift oscillators are the Wine Bridge oscillators. We have negative resistance oscillators and a type of a type of negative resistance is one type of negative resistance oscillator is the tunnel diode oscillator. And lastly, we have crystal oscillators, and one popular example for this is the Pierce oscillator. Okay, so the second type of oscillator is the non-sinusoidal, or also called relaxation oscillators. Okay, so this type of oscillators will give us a waveform which is different from a sinusoidal waveform. So what are those types of waveforms? So we have a square wave, we have a rectangular wave, we have sawtooth wave or pulse wave. Okay, so it depends on the type of waveforms that we will be producing. So we have here different types of non-sinusoidal oscillators. So we have multivibrators or sawtooth generators. So the transistors used in the mentioned circuits may be biased as Class A, Class B, or Class C amplifiers. However, Class A amplifiers are usually used in high-quality audio frequency oscillators, while Class C amplifiers are being used for radio frequency oscillators. So we also have two types of oscillations. So we have here damped and undamped oscillations. So here on the left, we have damped oscillators. So as we can see, what do we notice here? The amplitude of your sinusoidal waveform keeps on decreasing with time. Okay, ultimately, there will come a time that the amplitude of the oscillations decays to zero without any compensations to circuit losses. So as you can observe here, the frequency remains the same. Okay, so although the amplitude is decreasing, the frequency remains the same because the frequency is being determined by the circuit parameters. So sinusoidal oscillator serves a variety of functions in both telecommunications and electronics. Okay, so we all know that sinusoidal waveforms are being used as carrier signal in both the radio and cable transmissions. So we have here on the right side is an undamped oscillations. Okay, so when we say undamped oscillations, the amplitude remains constant. Okay, so there are no losses, or if they have, there is a provision for compensating for them. Usually, these waveforms used as carrier waves for transmitting low-frequency audio information to far-off places. Okay, so usually this is our representations for oscillator circuits or sinusoidal waveforms. Okay, and how do we produce the carrier waveforms? We usually make use of oscillators, as you can remember when dealing with the block diagrams of in our principles of communication topics or subject. So here is now our oscillatory circuit. So usually an oscillator, in this example, an oscillatory circuit is an LC circuit or a tank circuit. So what do we mean by a tank circuit? It is made up of two reactive elements. Okay, so we have an inductor or a coil and a capacitor. Okay, so these two elements are both capable of storing energy. So our capacitor here stores energy in its electric field when there is a potential difference across its two plates, while inductor or coil stores energy in its magnetic field whenever current flows through it. Okay, so in the first figure, let us consider that the capacitor has been fully charged. Okay, so the capacitor has been fully charged from a DC source, from a specific DC source, although since the switch is open, C or the capacitor cannot discharge through the inductor, okay, because of the open switch here. So what will happen the moment we turn on the switch here? So let us proceed to our figure B. So the moment that the switch is closed, we can see that the electrons, or we can say that the electrons moves from plate A to plate B, okay, through the coil. So the conventional current flow is from plate B to plate A, like in this direction, but the electron flows moves from plate A to plate B, okay? So because of that movement, this reduces the strength of the electric field and hence the amount of energy stored in the capacitor, okay, as electronic current starts flowing. So as the electronic current starts flowing from B to A, the self-induced EMF in the coil opposes, okay? So since the direction is from B to A, look at the direction of the self-induced EMF in the coil. So it opposes the current flow, hence the rate of discharge of electron is somewhat being slowed down. So the current direction is from B to A, and look at the direction of the opposing flux here. So due to the flow of current, the magnetic field set up which stores the energy given out by the electric field. So as plate A loses its electrons by discharge, okay, so the electron current has a tendency to die down and will be actually reduced to zero when all excess electrons on A are driven over to plate B. So in this case, both plates have reduced to same potential. So therefore, if the potential is the same, there is no electric field in this area, but the magnetic field is maximum. Okay, so you see in a capacitor, it should have a difference in the potential. But if the potential is different already, we can see is the same already, we can say that there is no electric field while the magnetic field is maximum. Okay, so if we're going to look at figure C, however, due to self-induction of the coil, more electrons are being transferred to B than are necessary to make up the electrons deficiency there. So it means now that B has more electrons compared to point A or plate A, thus capacitor becomes charged again. Okay, because there is again a difference in potential, although the direction is now opposite. Okay, so the movement of electrons now is from point B to A, while the movement of current or the conventional current flow is from point A to point B. So in this case, the magnetic field collapses. Okay, so as you can see, your magnetic flux here again goes back to zero, and the energy given out by it is stored in the electric field of the capacitor. Okay, so what happens now is the capacitor starts discharging again, but this time in the opposite direction. So from electrons from B to A, while the current is from A to B. Again, look at the magnetic flux. It is again opposing the direction of our conventional current flow, and the cycle continues. Okay, so the charging and the discharging of these two elements continues. So when the capacitor is fully charged, it is being discharged through your coil here. Or when your coil is fully charged, it discharges through your capacitor. And again, the capacitor charges, discharging it to the to the coil, and again, when the coil is fully charged, it discharges back to the capacitor. So the to and fro motion of the electrons between the two plates constitutes an oscillatory current. Okay, so in the process of charging and discharging, some energy loss in the process. Okay, so those energy is being dissipated into heat. So that causes what we call a while ago the damped oscillations eventually. So we have here two things to consider for us to determine the frequency of our oscillatory current. So we have two. So what are those two? We have the capacitance of the capacitor and the self-inductance of the coil. So for the capacitance of the capacitor, we see that the larger the capacitor, the greater the time required for the reversal of the discharge current. Hence, that will give us lower frequency. So larger value of the capacitance gives us a lower value of frequency because of the greater time required for the travel of our electrons. Okay, so that means a higher time, lower frequency, because time is inversely proportional with the frequency. So aside from the capacitor, we have the self-inductance of our coil. So it says that the greater, okay, so the greater the internal effect or the greater the self-inductance of the coil, the greater the internal effect, and hence, again, the longer time required by the current to stop flowing. So again, longer time means lower frequency. So as we can see from the formula, 1 all over 2 pi square root of LC here, okay, so the both capacitance and inductance are inversely proportional with our frequency. So usually, inductance and capacitance are given in a microhenry and in a microfarad values. So for our oscillator to have frequency stability or not the frequency is not changing, okay, or it is stable, we need to set up this following conditions. Okay, number one, the operating point of the active device that you will be using. Okay, so the active device, it can be transistors, both BJT or FET, or it can be diodes, or it can be operational amplifiers. Okay, but if we're talking about particularly the transistors, how do we make sure that the operating point of the active, what are we going to do with the operating point of our active devices? So the Q point or the operating point is chosen as to confine your circuit operation on the linear portion, because nonlinear operation varies the parameters. Thus, when your parameters are varying, it will have an effect on the frequency stability. Okay, so number two, we have the inter-element capacitances. We have already discussed the inter-element capacitances. Okay, so any changes in the inter-element capacitances, particularly the collector to emitter parasitic component, can cause changes in the oscillator output frequency. So take note, as we have discussed in the previous slide, the two components that make up the frequency of an oscillator, one is the capacitor. So there is a tendency that inter-element capacitances add up to the capacitance of our circuit, therefore having an effect in the oscillator's output frequency. Okay, so third, we have the power supply. Okay, so changes in DC power changes in DC operating voltages that is applied to the active device can have an impact on its parameters. So to make sure that our frequency will be stable, we usually make use of regulated power supply. Temperature variation. So as we all know in our previous discussions, changes in temperature, varying temperature causes change in transistor parameters. Okay, so having change in transistor parameters will affect the frequency stability of our oscillator. And not only that, not only in those transistor parameters, it has an effect. It also has an effect on the passive elements, okay, particularly the resistors, capacitors, and the inductors used in our circuit. Okay, so output load. So what do we mean by output load? It may cause change in Q factor. Okay, so we have already mentioned Q factor from our previous discussions of an LC tuned circuit. And lastly, mechanical vibration. So mechanical vibrations affects frequency stability of an oscillator. So it may change in, it may have an effect in the change in oscillator frequency. Therefore, we have to isolate our oscillators from any source of mechanical vibration. So we have to make sure that the positioning of our electronic oscillator is separated or isolated in anything that will be causing mechanical vibrations. So we have here the essential components of a feedback LC oscillator. Any feedback oscillator circuits must have these components for us to be assured that we have an undamped output waveform. Okay, so we have here a carrier wave, for example. So the carrier wave is being produced by our oscillator. So an LC oscillator must have what we call a resonant circuit. So usually a resonant circuit is made up of our coil and our capacitor. So this is also called FDN. So FDN stands for frequency determining network because it is this part of the circuit that will determine what will be the frequency of our carrier wave is. So we have here an amplifier circuit, okay, and then we have here a feedback network circuit. So as you can see, for an oscillator circuit, we do not have an input signal, okay, so there is no input signal for an electronic oscillator. So the essentials of the feedback LC oscillator. So first, we have the frequency determining network. Although the example here is made up of capacitors and inductors, we're going to find out later that they are not the only one which determines the frequency of an oscillator in any electronic oscillator circuits. Okay, so we have an amplifier. So the function of an amplifier is to, of course, to amplify oscillations being produced by the resonator. Okay, so for the positive feedback network, so this transfer part of the output energy to the resonant LC circuit in proper phase. So the amount of energy being fed back is sufficient to meet the losses, okay, so the I squared losses or the power losses in the LC circuit. Okay, so initial condition for maintaining oscillations, so we have to take note of the following. So we have your BA, okay, so must be equal to 1 plus JO, or your BA is must be equal to 1 with zero phasing. Okay, so the feedback factor or the loop gain must be equal to 1. So this is our loop gain, and the net phase shift around the loop must be equal to 0 or any integral values of 360 degrees. So this conditions here is what we call Barkhausen criterion, and this is being used, okay, for maintaining a steady level of oscillation at a specific frequency. So we have here the theory of sinusoidal oscillation. So loop gain and phase. So to build sinusoidal oscillator, we need to use an amplifier with positive feedback. So we have here an amplifier, this is our AV, with a positive feedback, this is our B. Okay, so the idea is to use feedback signal in place of the input signal. Okay, so for the first portion, we will be using an input signal here, an input AC signal, so that we can drive, okay, so we can drive our resonance circuit. So using this one, and we have an amplifier, we will be having an output voltage which is equivalent to AV. Okay, so the amplification factor of our amplifier multiplied by our V in. So if the input feedback is large enough and has the correct phase, there will be an output signal even though there is no external input signal. Okay, so as we can see in the first figure, AC voltage source driving the input terminals of an amplifier given an amplified output voltage. So what is the amplified output voltage? So V out is equivalent to AV multiplied by our V in. So this output voltage now is being fed back, okay, fed back. So it drives a feedback circuit. So this B is our feedback circuit that is usually a resonance circuit. So the feedback circuit is equivalent to AV multiplied by B, okay, any factor of our feedback circuit multiplied by the input voltage V in. So we call that as our VF, or our feedback voltage, wherein B is a feedback fraction. Okay, so what happens next? So this voltage drives the feedback circuit that is usually a resonance circuit. We get maximum feedback at a certain frequency. So this operates only at a single frequency. So if the phase shift through the amplifier and feedback circuit is equivalent to 0 degrees, okay, that means VF, that means this VF here is in phase with VN. So what are we going to do next? So we can connect point X here to point Y, and we can now remove your V in here. Remove your voltage source. So that means your VF, which is equal to AVB multiplied by V in, drives, it will be the one now driving the input of the amplifier. So take note of the removal or the necessity of having an input AC signal. Okay, so VF drives the input of the amplifier. So we have here what happens with the values of our AVB. Okay, so we have here when AVB is less than 1, so that means your AVB V in is less than your V in, the output signal will die out. So this is the representation for the first condition. For the second condition, wherein your AVB is greater than 1, so that means your AVB V in is greater than our V in, the output signal builds up. So this is the representation for that. So for an input signal or for a carrier signal, we don't want a carrier signal that dies down. So eventually, after a certain period of time, we don't have any carrier signal anymore, or we don't like neither carrier signal that increases. Okay, so that increases as time progresses. What we want is a steady sine wave. So when do we have a steady sine wave? So we have a steady sine wave when our AVB is equal to 1. So we don't want less than 1, we don't want greater than 1, so we want it to be equal to 1. So that will happen when our AVB multiplied by Vin is equivalent to Vin. Okay, so in that case, we will be having a steady sine wave like in this figure. Okay, so what happens is for starting up a sinusoidal oscillation, we usually wanted a greater than 1, okay, when the power is just turned on. Eventually, we have to decrease it to 1 for us to have a constant peak-to-peak voltage. So where does the starting voltage come from? Okay, so the starting voltage is actually just a thermal noise. So where does it come from? So usually it comes from the resistor in your circuit, because resistor, they contains some free electrons. And at ambient temperature, these free electrons tend to move randomly in different directions, and they generate a noise voltage across that resistor. So the movement of free electrons randomly can produce several frequencies up to a maximum of 1000 gigahertz. Okay, so we only wanted a small AC voltage source producing, so your resistor is acting like a small AC source, producing all types of frequencies. So what are we going to do from these several frequencies is we're going to make the loop greater than 1 first initially, and the loop phase shift equal to 0. Okay, so when your loop gain is greater than 1 and the loop phase shift is equal to 0 at a specific resonant frequency. And then eventually, okay, we have to decrease your AVB into unity. So there are two ways to decrease AVB to 1. Okay, so first, we can either decrease your voltage gain, or we can reduce your the feedback factor B. Okay, so we have here initially, loop gain AVB is greater than 1 at the frequency where the loop phase shift is 0 degrees. So after the desired output level is reached, AVB must be decreased to 1 by reducing either your AV or your B. So we have here the Wien bridge oscillator. Okay, so one good example, first example of the type of oscillators that we'll be discussing is the Wien bridge oscillator. So this is the standard oscillator. This is a standard oscillator circuit for low to moderate frequencies. So usually it can produce frequencies from 5 hertz to about 1 megahertz. Okay, so this is used in commercial audio generators and is usually preferred for other low frequency applications. So before we proceed, okay, to Wien bridge oscillator, let us first discuss two types of circuits. First is we have a log circuit. Okay, so log circuit is represented by this portion. So this is already familiar to you. When the capacitor is being placed here, we call this as bypass circuits. Okay, so wherein we have V out is equal to V in, represented by XC divided by R squared plus XC squared. Okay, giving us an angle negative arctangent R all over XC. So the negative sign in the equation specifies that the output voltage lags the input voltage. Look at the phasor diagram. Okay, so the output voltage lags the input voltage. from an angle 0 to 90 degrees. Okay, so it can, the output voltage can lag your input voltage from 0 degrees up to a maximum of negative 90 degrees. So we call this class A as a lag circuit. Then we have a lead circuit. So lead circuit, this is your capacitor. This is also called coupling circuit, wherein we have, as you can see, a positive angle. So the positive angle specifies that your output voltage leads your input voltage from 0 to 90 degrees. Okay, so we have here both coupling and bypass circuits are also called phase shifting circuit. So why is it called phase shifting circuit? So they shift the phase of the output signal either positive or negative with respect to the input signal. Okay, so a sinusoidal oscillator always uses some kind of phase shifting circuit to produce oscillation at a specific frequency or at a specific frequency of oscillation. For a Wien bridge oscillator, we have what we call a lead lag circuit. Okay, so this is our lead lag circuit. So this is a resonant feedback circuit which is being used in Wien bridge oscillators. Okay, so at very low frequencies, we have here your series capacitor. So at low frequencies, your series capacitor here appears to be open. Therefore, if this is open, we don't have any output signal. Okay, so this one, okay, at very high frequency, our shunt capacitor, this one, will be shorted. Okay, so when this is shorted, as you can see, we will be having no output voltage. So therefore, in very low frequencies and very high frequencies, we don't have output waveform. But in between these two extremes, the output voltage reaches a maximum value, this one. So at a certain frequency, the output voltage reaches a maximum value. Okay, so that maximum that specific frequency is what we call the resonant frequency, FR. This is where this is the frequency where the output is maximum. Okay, so we have here the phase angle of the output versus the input at very low frequency. Okay, so the angle is positive, so therefore we have here leading. At a very high frequency, the angle is negative, so we have here the lagging circuit. Okay, so at resonant, as you can see, our phase shift is equal to 0. So at resonance frequency, the feedback fraction B reaches a maximum value of 1/3. Okay, so at our resonance circuit, our FR happens, our resonant frequency happens when B reaches 1/3 and your phase shift is equal to 0 degrees. Okay, above or below FR, B is less than 1/3 and your phase shift is no longer 0 degrees. So, based on complex numbers, so by using complex numbers, the formula for your resonant frequency was derived, and it is given by B is equal to 1 all over square root of 9 minus XC over R minus R over XC squared. Okay, so our angle is arctangent XC over R minus R over XC divided by 3. So when XC is equal to R, when your capacitive reactance is equal to your resistance, we will be simplified. These formulas will be simplified, and we have of our formula 1 all over 2 pi FR C is equal to R, giving us our resonant frequency formula. So the formula for resonant frequency is 1 all over 2 pi RC. So a while ago, we have one formula. So we have one formula, which is FR is equal to 1 over 2 pi square root of LC. So this one, when we use LC or tank circuit. So this formula is being used when we make use a combination of resistors and capacitors. Like, for example, for a wine bridge oscillator. Okay, so how does it work? Okay, how does your wine bridge oscillator works? So positive and negative feedback, as you can see, there are two types of feedback in this circuit. There are two paths for the feedback from this circuit. So we have the positive feedback. So where is the positive feedback? From the output. So this is your positive feedback. So from the output, going through your lead and lag circuit to the non-inverting. Okay, so positive. That's why it's positive feedback, because it goes through the non-inverting input of your operational amplifier. And then we also have a negative feedback. So where is our negative feedback? So the negative feedback is from the output. This is our output through the voltage divider. So this is our voltage divider. Okay, so going to the inverting input. So since it goes through your inverting input, we call that your negative feedback. Okay, so initially when our circuit is turned on, more positive feedback is greater than the negative feedback to allow the oscillations to build up. So if you're going to remember, a while ago we mentioned that at the starting point your gain must be greater than 1, and then eventually when oscillation starts, we just lower it to 1. So initially, for our circuit, the moment it is turned on, we are assuming that the positive feedback is greater than the negative feedback to allow the oscillations to build up. So after the output reaches the desired level, the negative feedback becomes large enough, okay, to reduce our loop gain AVB equal to 1. So how does that happen? So at power up, the tungsten lump, okay, so where is your tungsten lump? This is your tungsten lump, okay. So the tungsten lump initially has low resistance, okay. So since it has low resistance, the negative feedback is small, okay. So when the negative feedback is small, the loop gain is greater than 1, and the oscillations can build up at a specific resonant frequency. Now, as the oscillation builds up, the tungsten lump, so this tungsten lump hits slightly, okay, and its resistance increases. So the moment its resistance increases in more circuit, okay, so in most circuit, the current through the lump is not enough to make the lump glow. So initially, it is not our objective to turn on this tungsten lump, okay. So it is used just to increase the resistance. So at some high output level, the tungsten lump has resistance, okay, that is exactly equal to R prime. So this is our R prime. At this point, when the tungsten lump resistance reaches R prime, the closed loop voltage gain from the non-inverting input to the output decreases to a certain value. So if you're going to look at that, since it is since this is located, okay, so what is our formula for positive feedback or for a non-inverting amplifier? So our formula there is equivalent to, this is 2R, okay, so this is 2R prime all over R prime here plus 1. Okay, so this is our formula for our non-inverting amplifier, for an operational amplifier. So this will be cancelled out. So we have 2 plus 1. So we have 3 here. Okay, since the lead lag circuit, so since this lead lag circuit has B equivalent to 1/3, okay, our loop gain will be equivalent to 3 multiplied by 1/3, thus giving us a value which is equivalent to 1. So at portions, when your R prime here is not yet equivalent to R prime, so it is lower to R prime, you can see we have a voltage gain that is greater than 3. Okay, so the moment that it reaches R prime, that only means that we have already reduced our AVB here equivalent to 1, and this starts our oscillations. Okay, so as we can see, initial conditions at power up, your output voltage is 0, and the resistance of the tungsten lump is less than R prime. Okay, so as V out increases, resistance of the lump also increases until it reaches R prime. Okay, so at this point, the gain for a closed loop gain has a value of 3, and the loop gain will be equivalent to 1 because it will be multiplied with the 1/3 value from our lead lag circuit. So at this portion, the output amplitude levels off and becomes constant. So we have another way to draw a wine bridge oscillator is by notch filter. Okay, so we have here our wine bridge. So lead lag circuit. So this is our lead lag circuit. This is the left side of our bridge. As you can see from the arrangement, we have bridge here. 1, 2, 3, 4. The arrangement is like a bridge circuit. The left side of the bridge is the lead lag, while the voltage divider circuit, so this is our voltage divider. It is the left side, it is the right side of our wine bridge. Okay, so for error voltage, output of the bridge, the output of our bridge is the error voltage coming from these two different inputs here. Okay, so we can say that our wine bridge is balanced when your error voltage approaches 0. A circuit with a 0 output at one particular frequency is a notch filter. So we have here another type of RC oscillator. We have a twin T filter. So this is a twin T filter. So this acts like a lead lag circuit with changing phase angle. Okay, so as we can see, the phase angles are changing. Okay, so again, there is a frequency where your phase shift equals 0 degrees. Okay, so as you can see, lower frequencies, high frequencies, we have a voltage gain equal to 1, but at resonance frequency, okay, our voltage gain drops to 0. So it is called a notch filter because it notch out frequencies near your resonance frequency. Okay, so unlike other filters that accepts a certain frequency, so notch filters has a 0 output or a 0 gain at a certain resonance frequency. Again, if we're going to design this one, how do we get the resonance frequency? The formula is still 1 all over 2 pi RC. So we have twin T oscillators. Okay, so we have positive feedback to the non-inverting. We have the feedback circuit, okay, or the voltage divider circuit going to the positive feedback to the non-inverting, while the negative feedback is through our twin T filter. Okay, however, this type of twin T oscillator, this type of oscillator is not being widely used. This is being used occasionally only because it works well only at one frequency. So we have phase shift oscillators. So phase shift oscillators, in here we can see phase shift oscillator with 3 lead circuits. We have here 3 lead circuits. Lead circuits may range from 0 to 90 degrees. However, in this particular design, each lead circuit has 60 degrees. Okay, so if we add up this 60 degrees, so we have 180 degrees, and another 180 will be coming from the operational amplifier circuit, since this is non-inverting. So non-inverting, so you have 180 degrees phase shift. So 180 plus 180, we have 360 degrees, the requirement for oscillation. So the requirement for oscillation is 0 degrees phase shift or 360 degrees. Okay, so we also have another type of phase shift oscillator. This is an alternative design wherein this design uses 3 lag circuits. Okay, so this is not a very popular design for oscillators because this cannot be easily adjusted. Okay, unlike the wine bridge oscillators. Although although wine bridge is super useful at low frequencies, the wine bridge is not suited for high frequencies. So what high frequencies we're talking about? Those above 1 megahertz. Okay, so it is because it is being limited by the bandwidth of the operational amplifier that we are using. So usually the bandwidth is up to 1 megahertz only. So when we are going to design oscillators above 1 megahertz, our another options are by using LC oscillators. So LC oscillators, one way to produce high frequency oscillations, so frequencies between 1 to 500 megahertz, wherein this is already beyond the unity frequency of most operational amplifiers. So if we do not make use of operational amplifiers, what are we going to make use? So active devices or amplification is being done by the transistors, particularly the BJT and the FET. Okay, so for RC oscillators, we use op-amps as the amplifier, while for LC oscillators, we use BJT and FET as the amplifier. Okay, so we have here a common emitter connection. One example is a Colpitts oscillator. Okay, so the voltage divider sets up a quiescent operating point. We have here an RF choke. The RF choke appears open to the AC signal. So it has a low frequency voltage gain. Voltage gain is equivalent to RC all over RE. And we call this as a capacitive voltage divider. Okay, because we have here capacitors as our resonant frequency determining network. So as you can see, the frequency determining network is this portion here, wherein your C, the C that you will be using there is C1, C2 all over C1 plus C2. The feedback ratio is C1 all over C2. And the formula is 1 all over 2 pi square root of LC. Okay, so this is our feedback network. This is also our frequency determining network. This voltage divider here is our amplifier. Okay, so this gives us 180 degrees. The common emitter amplifier gives us 180 degrees. Therefore, we have 360 degrees. So the resonant frequency is 1 all over 2 pi square root of LC. So accurate when the quality factor of the tank circuit is greater than 10. So what do we use for C? So we use C1, C2 divided by C1 plus C2. Okay, so we have a common base connection. So we have here a common base connection. As you can see, your base is grounded, okay, and the output is at the collector. So this is a feedback. This is another type of LC oscillator. Okay, so the feedback signal can be applied to the emitter. Capacitor C3. Okay, so where is capacitor C3? AC grounds the base. Okay, so this can oscillate at higher frequency because its high frequency gain is larger than that of common emitter oscillator. Okay, so we have here the following formulas for the design. We also have FET, Colpitts oscillator, just the same as the circuit a while ago. However, we use FET instead of BJT here. Okay, so this keep the oscillation frequency lower than the cutoff frequency of the FET amplifier. So we have Armstrong oscillator, so also called a Tickler coil. Okay, so it has a small secondary winding. So this is the difference. Okay, so we have here the frequency determining network as well as also the feedback, and then again we have here your amplifier as your common emitter configuration. We have Hartley oscillator. Please take note. Okay, so what's the difference between Colpitts and Hartley? So in Colpitts, we have your capacitor. Okay, so the voltage feedback is developed by the capacitor. So in Hartley oscillator, the feedback voltage is developed by an inductive voltage divider. So this time it's between L1 and L2. Your L is just the sum between L1 and L2, and the formula, okay, sorry, this is quite okay, so this is just the same, 1 all over 2 pi square root of LC, okay, wherein your L here is the sum of our L1 and L2 here. Okay, so that is the difference, because in Colpitts, our L is constant while we compute for the value of the capacitance. So for Hartley oscillator, your C is this value, and then you compute for the equivalent value of your inductance. Okay, so this is Hartley oscillator, and then we have Clapp oscillator. So Clapp oscillator is a refinement of Colpitts oscillator. So this is our Colpitts oscillator. So the Clapp oscillator has an additional value of C2. So we just get the combination. So that is 1 all over 1 over C1 plus 1 all over C2 plus 1 all over C3 to be used to be substituted for our value of C here. And of course, this is your value for L. So that is your Clapp oscillator. So the three mostly used LC oscillators are the Colpitts, the Hartley, and the Clapp oscillator. Okay, so if we do not want to use RC, if we don't want to use LC, we can make use of another type of oscillator, which is your crystal oscillator. Okay, so quartz crystal oscillators are used when the accuracy and stability of the oscillation frequency are important. Okay, so feedback signal comes from a capacitive tap. So your crystal now acts like a large inductor in series with a small capacitor. This is our symbol for a crystal, and the crystal itself, it is the frequency determining network. Okay, so it has a specific value, and the value of, don't need to compute for the value of your frequency, because whatever the value of the crystal will define the frequency of oscillation of your crystal oscillator. So quartz crystals, so maybe this is familiar to you. Quartz crystals are being used in electronic wristwatches and other critical timing applications. Okay, so wristwatches and other critical timing applications use crystal oscillators because they provide an accurate clock frequency. Okay, so the movement in our clock, the hand movement, it is provided by the quartz crystal, and it is very, very accurate. So how does your crystal operate? So it operates in what we call piezoelectric effect. Okay, so what happens? So when you apply an AC voltage across crystals, they vibrate at the frequency of the applied voltage. Then when you mechanically force them to vibrate, they generate an AC voltage of the same frequency. Okay, so it is on how you apply AC voltage and mechanical vibrations through your crystal. So we have different types of crystals. So usually Rochelle salts, they are being used for microphones, phonograph pickups, headsets, and loudspeakers. Tourmaline, they are used at very high frequency. Quartz crystals are used as RF oscillators and filters. Okay, so we have here a crystal slab. So this is an hexagonal prism with pyramids at the end. Okay, like this. A slab must be mounted between two metal plates like this one. So it is like a capacitor. So this is how a crystal slab looks like. So fundamental frequency and overtones. Fundamental frequency is the lowest frequency. Overtones, they are higher resonant frequencies, almost exact multiples of the fundamental frequency. F is equivalent to K all over T. So the thinner the crystal, okay, the more you mechanically process your crystal, the more fragile it becomes and the more likely it is to break when vibrating. So for quartz crystal, the highest possible frequency is 10 megahertz. So we have series and parallel resonance for a crystal. So series resonant frequency Fs, this is the resonant frequency of the LCR branch. So F is equivalent to 1 all over 2 pi L times Cs, and parallel is 1 all over 2 pi square root of L and Cp. So this is the electrical equivalent circuit within a crystal. However, this is not being solved anymore because when you buy your crystal, the resonant frequency is already somewhat given. Okay, so crystal stability, frequency of any oscillator tends to change slightly with time. So it has something to do with temperature and aging. So for crystal oscillator, it is said to be 1 part in 1 million per day. So when you put that in a temperature controlled oven, it becomes 1 part in 10 raised to 10 per day, or ppm. So we call this ppm, parts per million. Okay? So these are the different oscillator design. So this is a Colpitts crystal oscillator. So as you can see, we have your two capacitors here, just like in the Colpitts LC oscillator. The only difference is instead of using, okay, so instead of using inductor, we make use of a crystal instead. So which provides the frequency of oscillation, or FR? It is the crystal. Okay, so variations of Colpitts. So this is also a variation. So look at how you're going to make your oscillator circuit simple by using this one. Okay, then we have your a FET clap oscillator. Okay, so instead of using inductors here, we make use of crystal instead. Okay, so we make use of crystal instead. So this is a version of a FET clap oscillator. And then lastly, the popular Pierce crystal oscillator. So for the Pierce crystal oscillator, as you can see, no more different components in the circuit. So the crystal provides the frequency determining network. The crystal provides the feedback, okay? And then of course still the transistor here provides your amplifier. So this is the Pierce crystal oscillator. Okay? So that